Do you know why the rest of the world has reached at the last stage of starting a new world war?
As I've been warning for months, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country.
China is preparing to fight with United States of America.
Tariffs.
We will build a great wall.
We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived.
On every single channel, in every single individual government of parliament, on every single social media account, from financial market to fear of recession, they all are calling for one name.
China.
China.
China. China. China. China. China.
Not at all. China is fully prepared to fight to the very end.
China needs to make a deal with us. We don't have to make a deal with them.
Millions of people are suffering and trillions are going through the fear of recession. Who he is and what he is doing and why he is doing it. His madness from the art of war or his wisdom from the art of deal. Let's know. Good afternoon everyone. You are watching A Voice with Shahjahan. Before the innovation of social media, people didn't have much knowledge as compared to now. And now people want to know about tariffs, what are they and how they work. So simply tariffs are taxes charged on goods bought from other countries, and typically they are a percentage of product value. Let's take an example. A 10% tariffs on goods from most of nations means a $10 product gonna have $1 tax on it, which means total cost gonna will be into $11. In the case of Chinese product, if China is facing 145% of tariffs on it, the $10 cost of product gonna will be into $24.50 in euro 18.30. And those companies brings foreign products into US, then they have to pay the tax to the government. And average mentality of our question is like, why Donald Trump is getting so much attention by the rest of world, and why they do care about the US tariffs, and why they are giving so much attention to US. So I have a little bit data according to US, and the UK exported around 58 billion euros of goods to the US in 2024, mainly cars, machineries and pharmaceuticals. And the United States exports around $2.06 trillion in 2024. And US imported from Canada $348.41 billion in 2024, Mexico $334.04 billion in 2024, China $143.55 billion, United Kingdom $79.89 billion, Japan $79.72 billion, and Brazil $49.67 billion, India $41.75 billion, and United Arab Emirates $26.97 billion, and Singapore $46 billion, France $44 billion, and Spain $23 billion, and Vietnam $13.10 billion, Saudi Arabia $13.18 billion, Australia $34.58 billion, Italy $32 billion, Malaysia $27 billion, and Pakistan $2 billion. And United States exports in 2024 were valued at $2.06 trillion according to the UN Comtrade database. And US main export partners were Canada, Mexico and China, and their top three export commodities were fuel, oil and mineral. And US had a trade deficit around $1.39 trillion. And let me explain a little bit on trade deficit. What is trade deficit? A trade deficit is when a country's imports exceeds than its exports, meaning it is buying more goods and services to other countries than it is selling to them. Simply, a negative balance of a trade indicates a trade deficit. What are the disadvantages of a trade deficit? Well, a trade deficit can lead to job losses in domestic industries that compete with imports and potentially increase countries' debt. Also, a trade deficit can put pressure on countries' currency, potentially leading to currency devaluation. A weaker currency makes imports more expensive and contributing to inflation rate. And about advantages, and imports provide access to wider variety of goods and services on lower prices, potentially higher quality product for consumer. So advantage of a trade deficit, it attracts foreign investments which can boost economic activity and productivity. US currently runs trade deficit with China. The US imported far more from China, $440 billion than Beijing imported from America. And top 5 UK goods exported to US in 2024: cars $9 billion, medical and pharmaceutical products 6.6 billion euros, mechanical power generators $4.6 billion, scientific instruments $2.4 billion, aircrafts $2.2 billion. I have a long list of countries. Maximally 200 countries have exported their goods to US in 2024. And now why Trump is using tariffs, which is typically old excuses like Trump says tariffs will encourage US consumers to buy more American made goods and also going to increase the amount of tax raised and leading to investment in the country. Simply, he wants to reduce the gap between the value of goods. Simply, he argues that America has been taken advantage by the cheaters, pillaged, and foreigners. And also, at the same time, Trump was getting a reality check, which is Trump has strongly defended his tariff policy, but influential voices within his Republican Party have joined other opposition Democrats and foreign leaders. Since Trump's inauguration in January, there has been flurry of announcements on tariffs. And after Trump's administration, he announced 2nd of April so-called reciprocal tariffs on imports from about 90 nations that are above 10% across the board tax applied to all imports to US, and he named it on Twitter a Liberation Day, and this was a reaction rest of world's leaders.
April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again. In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal, that means they do it to us and we do it to them. Very simple.
My fellow Singaporeans, I've said before that the world is changing in ways that will disadvantage small open economies like Singapore. Some had previously questioned this assessment, but the recent Liberation Day announcement by the US leaves no room for doubt. It marks a seismic change in the global order. The era of rules-based globalization and free trade is over. We are entering a new phase, one that is more arbitrary, protectionist, and dangerous. For decades, the US was the bedrock for the free market economies of the world. It championed free trade and led efforts to build a multilateral trading system, anchored by clear rules and norms, where countries could achieve win-win benefits through trade. This WTO system brought unprecedented stability and prosperity to the world, and to the US itself. To be clear, the system is not perfect. Singapore and many others have long called for reform, to update the rules and to make the system better. But what the US is doing now is not reform. It is abandoning the entire system it had created. Its new approach of reciprocal tariffs, country by country, is a complete rejection of the WTO framework. The US has placed Singapore in the lowest base tier with a tariff of 10%. So the direct impact on us may be limited for now, but there are wider and more profound consequences. If other countries adopt the same approach as the US, abandoning the WTO and trading only on their own preferred terms, country by country, It will spell trouble for all nations, especially small ones like Singapore. We risk being squeezed out, marginalized, and left behind. We can also expect a strong global response to America's tariffs. Singapore has decided not to impose retaliatory tariffs, but other countries may not exercise the same restraint. The likelihood of a full-blown global trade war is growing. The impact of the higher tariffs plus the uncertainty of what other countries may do next will weigh heavily on the global economy. International trade and investments will suffer, and global growth will slow. Singapore will take a bigger hit than others because of our heavy reliance on trade. The last time the world experienced something like this was in the 1930s. Trade wars escalated into armed conflict and eventually the Second World War. No one can say how the current situation will unfold in the coming months or years. But we must be clear-eyed about the dangers that are building up in the world. Global institutions are getting weaker. International norms are eroding. More and more countries will act based on narrow self-interest and use force or pressure to get their way. This is the harsh reality of our world today. We will stay vigilant. We will build up our capabilities. We will strengthen our network of partnerships with like-minded countries. We are more ready than many other countries with our reserves, our cohesion, and our resolve. But we must brace ourselves for more shocks to come. The global calm and stability we once knew will not return anytime soon. We cannot expect that the rules which protected small states will still hold. I'm sharing this with you so that we can all be mentally prepared, so that we will not be caught off guard. Let us not be lulled into complacency. The risks are real and the stakes are high.
The problem is that in this scenario, to use your metaphor, the US has the bigger gun. And so China ends up having more to lose from this trade war, doesn't it? You know, it can't sustain the loss of 15% of its export market, i.e. what you export to the US.
Not at all. China is fully prepared to fight to the very end because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out of the China market, be my guest.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't care. We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. Right. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States. And we expect to survive for another 5,000 years.
As I've been warning for months, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never ever happen. We are once again at one of those hinge moments of history. Our old relationship with the United States, a relationship based on steadily increasing integration, is over. The system of open global trade, anchored by the United States, a system that Canada has relied on since the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped deliver prosperity for a country for decades, is over. These are tragedies, but it's also our new reality. We are over the shock of the American betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons.
But you're going to take us forward.
We have to look out for ourselves. And above all, we have to take care of each other.
中国人不惹事，也不怕事。施压、威胁和讹诈不是同中方打交道的正确方式。中方必将采取必要措施，坚决维护自身正当合法权益。如果美方置两国和国际社会的利益于不顾，执意打关税战、贸易战，中方必将奉陪到底。
Now I want to speak directly to one specific American, Donald. In the over 8 years you and I have worked together, we've done big things. We signed a historic deal that has created record jobs and growth in both of our countries. We've done big things together on the world stage, as Canada and the US have done together for decades, for generations. And now we should be working together to ensure even greater prosperity for North Americans in a very uncertain and challenging world. Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do. We two friends fighting is exactly what our opponents around the world want to see.
The president said that new taxes are needed to erase trade deficit between US and other countries ranging from China and European unions, and some nations are facing only universal 10% tariffs, while imports from dozens of other countries charged a higher specific reciprocal import levy. And after reciprocal tariffs, this was a reaction of financial market. The US and global market already started to feel an impact of Trump's tariffs, the US market taking worst hit so far. At the end of Thursday, at 3rd April, Dow Jones closed 1,700 points lower, plus the S&P 500 and Nasdaq indexes had their worst day since 2022. Thursday also ended with US dollar dipping to 6 months lower against the euro, along with US bond yield. And after that, on Friday, 4th of April at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, a report showed that S&P 500 index was down 193 points, 3.58% in a day. The Wall Street slump and global dip in stocks has sparked fresh fear in economists that US heading into a recession. And the cryptocurrency Bitcoin surged its highest level since Trump's announcement of tariff, fueled by weakening dollar, amid concerns over President's potential dismissal of Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Actually, White House officially have acknowledged Trump's consideration of dismissing Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Kevin, Trump's economic advisor, told the reporters when asked if firing is an option, and Trump has an authority to remove Powell. Also, 9th of April, Trump himself calls to Powell a loser and claiming there is no any virtual inflation. And he said Powell has always been too late, except when it came to election period, when he lowered in order to help sleepy Joe Biden, and later on Kamala got elected. And he says, how did that work out? The premier cryptocurrency's value increased approximately 3% to exceed 87,600. 6th of April, during appearance on NBBC's Meet to Press, Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent was asked about market turmoil and said there doesn't have to be a recession. However, 9th of April, Mr. Trump backed away his plan of tariffs and announced a 90 days pause. And for China, rate wasn't fall at all, but hiked further 125% plus another 20% linked to drug fentanyl. A pause means rate above 10% for 59 territories will be suspended until July. And in retaliatory actions, China has hit back with 125% of tariffs on US imports and said fight till end. And President Trump was like, I am sitting president of US, and if China is not listening to me, then what is point of being elected as a president? And at the same time, President Xi, he was like, I am also a president of a developed country of China. Basically, their moves were simply as like ego moves. Until now, this was a tit-for-tat exchange. 16th of April on Tuesday, due to retaliatory actions, US placed 245% of tariffs on China. And this was a message from China to Trump, stop blackmailing, and I am quoting it, if US really wants to resolve the issue through dialogues and negotiation, then it should stop blackmailing and talk to China on the basis of equality, respect, and mutual benefit. Spokesman Lin Jin said. Trump meanwhile has said, ball is in China's court, and I am quoting it, China needs to make their first step in any negotiation. China needs to make a deal with us. We don't have to make a deal with them. BBC has published on 21st of April, China has warned it will retaliate against countries that make deal with US if it hurts Beijing's interest, as the trade war between the two world's biggest economies threatens to engulf other nations. And for these kind of consequences, they established WTO, World Trade Organization, in 1995, replaced to GAAT, General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs. The WTO's rules, their main aim is to encourage free and fair trade by lowering trade obstacles and ensuring transparent trade. Before GAAT, 1941 is powerful reminder that the desire for peace and security drove by the creation of today's global economic system. The global rules that underpin our multilateral economic system were a direct reaction to the Second World War and a desire for it to never be repeated. And this is a statement from WTO on 16th of April. I am quoting it, including the suspension of reciprocal tariffs by United States, the volume of world merchandise trade is now expected to decline by 0.2% in 2025, before posting a modest recovery of 2.5% in 2026. Now, new estimate for 2025 is 3 percentage points lower. And 17th of April, WTO says, where exports are forecasted drop by 12.6%, which could lead to an even sharper decline of 1.5%. Trump has repeatedly accused China, Brazil, Mexico, and rest of the world, in fact levying higher tariffs on American imports than the US places on goods to their imports. And after that, 10th of April, Trump trade advisor says stock market plunge, no big deal. Stock market indices sharply rose on Wednesday on Trump's announcement after 4 straight days of declines. And hours before he made that announcement, Trump had posted on social media, and I am quoting it, be cool, everything is going to work out well. After that, he said that this is a great time to buy. White House spokesman Kush Desai said in a statement, and I am quoting it, it is the responsibility of President of the United States to reassure the markets and Americans about their economic security in the face of non-stop media fear-mongering. And also Desai said Democrats rallied against China's cheating for decades, and now they are playing partisan games instead of celebrating President Trump's decisive action. The question is about White House Democrats, are they playing partisan games with insider trading? Earlier, Senator Adam Chief D. Calif sent a letter to White House Chief of Staff Susie Wallace and U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Guerrier, requesting to them they conduct an urgent inquiry into whether President Trump, his family, or other members of administration are engaged in any insider trading or any other illegal transaction informed by advanced knowledge of non-public information regarding to his changed tariff policy yesterday or any time during this administration. And House Minority Leaders Hakeem Jeffrey told DNY reporters that Democrats, and I am quoting it, need to get the bottom of the possible stock manipulation of the American people, including what, if any, advanced knowledge did members of House Republican Conference of have Trump's decisions to to pause the reckless tariffs that he put into place. And $7 trillion have been wiped out from US market after the announcements of 90 days pause. And also 9th of April, thousands of protesters rallied in Washington and other cities across US.
States across the country in many different sort of settings and contexts for that entire summer. To what extent or to what the long-term sort of consequences of that was, I think, that's quite unclear. But right now, this was sort of a one-off thing. And I can't help but note the timing of this, that, the things that these protesters are calling out have been going on now, not just for the weeks of the Trump's second term, but really through the course of, modern US history. But it only comes to a fruition now in the days after Donald Trump's announcement on tariffs basically tanked the global economy with a
due process. That's the first thing they come for, is to take away our from South Africa, stripping all of our society's elements that are for the people and trying to aggrandize it for a minority of powerful and rich in a rigged system that benefits them and not us.
They've outlawed the use of
As we said to those Republicans that day, you are independently elected. Do your jobs. You are not subjects to a king.
And in the end, there is part of a joke that Donald Trump puts 10% of tariffs on an island which is named of McDonald, and it is not some like McDonald Disney Island. It is a place where from decades no one lives there. And for till now, thank you so much for watching A Voice. Stay tuned.